Today we're going to talk about Eric Smokes and David Warren, who had their convictions vacated this Wednesday. If their names seem familiar, it's because it was a pretty high-profile case when it happened, and they've been fighting to clear their names the entire time. So we're going to look at the story from people talking about the vacated sentences, which happened this Wednesday, and there's going to be a good but interesting press statement at the end from Alvin Bragg. So let's get into it. So, best friends imprisoned after 1987 Times Square murder have convictions vacated. They say they're never going to stop fighting. And they are suing civilly. This story is by Liam Quinn. Eric Smokes, 56, and David Warren, 53, both served 2 decades in prison for the murder they always maintained they did not commit. Two best friends who, in 1987, were convicted of a murder in New York City they never committed and served more than 20 years in prison, had their convictions overturned this week. Eric Smokes, now 56, and David Warren, 53, have been found guilty of murdering Jean Casse, a French tourist who was attacked and killed early in the morning of New Year's Day, 1987, near Times Square. Smokes was 19 at the time of the attack, while Warren was 16, according to Outlet. The pair, who have been friends since high school, maintain that while they were in Manhattan that night to watch the ball drop, they never went above 48th Street. And then the New York Times reported that detail using court documents. Casse was killed on 52nd Street. Still, both Smokes and Warren were convicted after witnesses claimed they were at the scene, and the pair were sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. Warren was paroled in 2007, while Smokes was released in 2011. So they both spent 2 decades or more in prison, and then they've been fighting to clear their names since they've gotten out. In the years since, the teenage witnesses who testified against the pair have subsequently said they were treated as suspects by police and felt pressured to lie. So note that right there. You could be placed under arrest. Pressure for you to lie and get out of that arrest. Further, the DA's office said Warren and Smokes both had alibis corroborated by their friends on the night of the murder, and the description of the perpetrator did not match either of the falsely convicted men. A motion to dismiss the convictions was denied in 2020, court records indicate. But a year later, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, under new DA Alvin Bragg, began reinvestigating the case as part of the newly established Post-Conviction Justice Unit. Now, shout out to this post-conviction unit. Post-conviction units, and, they could have different names, but that's what it's called in the Manhattan District. These are relatively new types of units that municipalities and states are starting to form and put together to deal with the problem of mass incarceration, wrongful imprisonment, and helping people who, especially if you've been wrongfully convicted and then get back out into society and have to reintegrate after 5, 10, 20, 30 years of your life was spent behind bars. The idea is to help give you some relief after that injustice of wrongful conviction. So post-conviction justice units are newer things that places are starting to roll out. It's a great thing to see, but just know that it's a new frontier. And I really think that interest in cases following things like this can help units like this move the ball forward and really look and re-examine something and see if, even though someone unfortunately has spent time in prison or has had their name ruined, at least we can plug the drain and try to do the right thing now and get them out and clear their name now, vacate their conviction. So personally, when I come across stories like this, I also like to look at, is it one of these types of units that's taking this initiative? Who's making this fight happen to help finally right this wrong? Because as we see here, a motion to dismiss was denied just a few years ago in 2020. Back to the article. After finding numerous issues with the investigation, Bragg recommended both men's convictions be overturned. Court records indicate that on Wednesday, State Supreme Court Judge Stephen Antignani, I probably butchered that, vacated the convictions, thus formally clearing the names of both Smokes and Warren. Now, this is going to be a statement from Alvin Bragg. Eric Smokes and David Warren lost decades of their life to an unjust conviction, Bragg said in a statement. I am inspired by the unyielding advocacy of Mr. Smokes and Mr. Warren and hope that today's decision can finally bring them a measure of comfort and justice. I thank our Post-Conviction Justice Unit for its thorough investigation and to the court for its careful consideration of this matter. It is never too late to reconsider the integrity of old convictions, because everyone in New York deserves equal justice under the law. So it's never too late to reconsider the integrity, because everyone in New York deserves equal justice under the law. So I think this type of story deserves a press statement because people should know that it happened. but it's also a very easy and good opportunity for a political office to be able to come out and make a big win story into a press statement. NBC New York reported that Warren and Smokes intend to file a civil suit. There was tunnel vision, but we were never going to stop fighting until we took our last breath, Smokes said, according to the outlet. Despite the ordeal, Smokes and Warren have remained close friends, ABC7 reported. Now, they were actually writing letters to each other. They were in different prisons. They moved prisons multiple times over this 20 years. It was like 23 or 24 years for David. But they sent letters to each other at least once a month, supporting each other even when they weren't in the same prison. So, and then they come out and they married high school girlfriends. They both married high school girlfriends. So it's one of those things where they supported each other in their fight. Presumably those high school girlfriends supported them in the fight. And just having that support is really important. I think it was Eric. He had said something. He described that he believes he was just in shock for the first 5 years that he served in prison because he just doesn't remember it. And all they kept thinking, they both described feeling like, every day through the trial, we just felt like we were optimistic that we were hopeful things would happen the right way. And then it never did. And then we were behind bars and we kept hoping every day that the right thing would happen. And then it never did. So the idea of having support, even when you're facing something so wrong, is so important. And one of the attorneys, he's a civil rights attorney, Pierre Sussman. There were 2 attorneys. I'm not sure who the second one was, but they worked together in 2017 to start filing these motions for, get this conviction vacated because of new evidence, meaning these recanted witness statements. So in 2018, they do secure a new hearing, but then at that hearing, State Supreme Court Justice Stephen Ansignani supported the position of the district attorney's office, which at the time argued the recanting witnesses were credible in their recantation. So they were credible back in 1987, even though the witnesses had an alibi and didn't match the statement of appearance of the suspects. But they're not credible when they come out now and say, hey, we told a lie because we were teenagers and you were questioning us and we didn't want to get in trouble. Now they're not credible. Or in 2018, they were incredible. So obviously, fast forward to 2023, when the post-conviction unit sends a letter forward to the court recommending the convictions be vacated, the court looks at it and they finally agree. But Pierre Sussman, he's one of the attorneys that's been in this fight. He's a civil rights attorney out of Brooklyn, New York. He's worked with a lot of familiar cases. I think he's helped exonerate 7 different men in the last couple of years. One of them very recently, just last month, was Michael Rhines from Rochester, New York, who spent 30 years in prison. He was up in Attica. Another story was Roshan Hargraves. Now, Roshan Hargraves was convicted, if you know the name Louis Scarella, that's a scorned NYPD detective that apparently, let's get the right number. The Louis Scarella, that is a detective. He had retired, but then a ton of his convictions were overturned. And so far, at the time of whenever this New York Times article was written, his overturned murder cases cost New York $110 million. And obviously, any number of years and lives of the people involved. So yeah, he was accused of framing dozens of people. So Roshan Hargraves was one of them, and Pierre Sussman was part of the defense team trying to get him, post-conviction relief. So if you see this name or you see any cases that he's following and you guys want to talk about it, let's talk about it. Definitely excited to bring some attention to the work that he's doing and the lives of these people that were really served a really unjust sentence for something that they never did. So I was excited to see this story yesterday. I caught the press statement and I was like, well, I want to celebrate a post-conviction win with you guys, but I also want to ask Alvin Bragg's office, is it hey, get the conviction now and then deal with the post-conviction stuff later if someone shouldn't have been convicted in the first place? Because now there seems to be a little bit of imbalance between the missions there, right? The post-conviction unit's out here pounding some pavement and saying, hey, this is a wrong conviction. But on the other side of the coin, these wrongful convictions that, this conviction took place in 1987, but some of the cases we're hearing about now since Bragg took office in 2021, it seems like no matter what the evidence is, it's getting steamrolled into a trial, through the court, or into a plea deal to secure a conviction. So at the same time I'm celebrating the growth of a post-conviction unit in the Manhattan District of New York, I also want to ask, and it's your floor, let me know if you're curious, what's going on with the process of convictions in the first place and the strategy of approaching convictions in the Manhattan District. So let me know if you heard about this story and let me know any thoughts that you have. If you have other stories like this, whether it's a case that's currently pending or there's post-conviction issues going on and you think it needs some attention, I think it helps for us to talk about cases because it can make these political offices look at them. We're seeing Wesley Bell do it in St. Louis for the Marcellus Williams case. Just that awareness and support can move the needle. I really believe that. So if you ever think of anything or you just have any thoughts in general, always feel welcome to leave a comment. And I definitely hope to be back soon with another story of someone who finally has a wrongful conviction righted. You guys take care and happy Friday.